When the dean of admissions at St. Judas Academy called my wife to inform her that her daughter's enrollment was being terminated effective immediately due to financial delinquency, Lauren didn't just panic. She threatened to sue. She screamed into the phone that there had been a mistake, that the tuition had been auto-drafted for 3 years without incident, and that this was harassment. I sat across the kitchen island, drinking my black coffee, watching her unravel. She slammed the phone down, her face flushed with a mix of rage and terror, and turned to me. "Fix this," she demanded. "Call the bank. Call the school. Something is wrong with the account." I took a slow sip of my coffee, set the mug down on the granite counter I had paid for, and looked her dead in the eye. "There is no mistake, Lauren. I didn't forget to pay the tuition. I simply remembered my place. To understand why I allowed my stepdaughter to be evicted from her private school 3 months before her freshman finals, we have to go back to a Thanksgiving dinner that shattered for years of silence. I met Lauren when her daughter, Emma, was 10 years old. Lauren was charming, driven, and struggling. She had gone through a messy divorce with her ex-husband, Mark, a man who was charming in the way a con artist is charming. He was always between opportunities, always had a big deal closing next week, and never, absolutely never, had money for child support. I fell in love with Lauren, and by extension, I committed myself to Emma. I knew the statistics about step-parenting. I knew it would be a thankless grind, but I wanted to be the stability they never had. When we married, I didn't just sign a marriage license. I signed a social contract to fill the void Mark had left behind. For 4 years, I was the quiet infrastructure of their lives. I work as a senior actuary. My job is risk assessment and financial planning. I am not exciting, but I am solvent. I brought order to their chaos. Mark, the biological father, was the Disney dad. He would show up once a month, take Emma to an amusement park or a movie, buy her a giant cotton candy, and then drop her off sugar-crashed and emotional. He was the fun guy. I was the guy who made sure she brushed her teeth, did her math homework, and went to bed on time. I was the guy who paid for the braces that straightened her smile. I was the guy who funded the travel soccer team that Mark bragged about on Facebook, but never contributed a dime toward. The financial disparity was massive. Lauren worked in retail management. She worked hard, but her salary barely covered the mortgage on the house she insisted we keep because it was Emma's childhood home. I covered everything else. The utilities, the groceries, the vacations, the 2 cars, and the crown jewel of our expenses, St. Jude's Academy. $18,000 a year. That was the tuition. Mark was legally obligated by their divorce decree to pay half. He had paid exactly $0 in 4 years. I covered the full amount, plus the uniform costs, the iPad fees, and the mandatory charitable donations. I did it because I wanted Emma to have the best chance at life. I thought we were a team. But resentment is a silent killer. It builds up in the arteries of a marriage like plaque. The tension came to a head last month. Emma, now 14, had been struggling with a massive science fair project, a working model of a sustainable irrigation system. It was complex. It required coding, physical building, and data analysis. For 3 weeks, I came home from work, loosened my tie, and went straight to the garage to help her. We spent weekends at the hardware store. I taught her how to solder wires. I helped her format her data spreadsheets. I stayed up until 2 a.m. the night before the presentation to help her print and glue the display board because the printer jammed. Lauren made snacks. Mark didn't even know the project existed. Emma got an A. She won the regional blue ribbon. We were all ecstatic. Then came Thanksgiving. We were hosting my parents, my sister's family, and Lauren's mother. It was a full house. The turkey was carved, the wine was flowing, and the mood was festive. My mother, bless her heart, brought up the science fair. "We are just so proud of you, Emma," my mom beamed, passing the mashed potatoes. "That irrigation project sounded incredibly difficult. You must be a genius." Emma smiled, basking in the praise. "Yeah, it was a lot of work. I had to learn Python for the sensors and figure out the hydraulic pressure ratios." "Well, you had a great teacher," I said, winking at her from across the table. "I think we spent more time in Home Depot this month than we did in our own living room. But that soldering job you did was professional grade." The room went quiet. It wasn't a hostile silence at first. It was just a pause. But then Emma's face twisted. She dropped her fork onto her plate with a loud clatter. "Why do you always have to make it about you?" she snapped. I blinked, confused. "I wasn't. I was just saying we worked hard on it, Em." "I did the work," she said, her voice rising. "You just stood there and watched. You always try to take credit for my stuff. It's annoying." "Emma," I said, my voice dropping to that calm, parental register. "That's not fair. I spent 3 weekends in the garage with you. I taught you how to code the sensors. You didn't teach me anything." She shouted. "I looked it up on YouTube." "God, You are so desperate to be my dad. It's pathetic. The table was dead silent now. My sister was staring at her plate. My father had put his wine glass down. This was beyond teenage moodiness. This was a public evisceration. I looked at Lauren. This was the moment where a partner steps in. This was the moment where the mother says, Emma, apologize to your stepfather. He helped you for weeks. Lauren cleared her throat. She looked at Emma, then she looked at me. Her eyes were cold, annoyed that I had disrupted the dinner by being offended. Let's not do this now, Lauren said dismissively. No, I said, feeling a heat rise in my chest. She just told the entire table that I'm pathetic for helping her. She needs to apologize. Lauren slammed her hand on the table. Stop it, she hissed. She is a child. She is stressed. And honestly, she's right. You do hover. You do try too hard. I try too hard. I repeated, stunned. I was soldering wires at 2 a.m. She's not your daughter, Mike, Lauren said. The words hung in the air like smoke. Excuse me, I whispered. You heard me, Lauren said, her voice sharp and final, loud enough for my parents to hear clearly. She has a father. Mark is her father. You are my husband. You are a stepfather. You need to remember your place. Stop trying to parent her and just to be here. My mother audibly gasped. My dad looked like he was about to flip the table. I looked at Emma. She was smirking. She had won. Mom had taken her side. The fake dad had been put in his corner. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a violent snap. It was the sound of a heavy burden being cut loose. It was the sound of a contract being voided. Remember my place, I repeated slowly. Yes, Lauren said, picking up her wine glass. Now, can we please just eat? You're absolutely right, I said. I picked up my napkin, dabbed my mouth, and placed it on the table. I apologized for overstepping. It won't happen again. I finished my dinner in silence. I didn't speak while I cleared the plates. I didn't speak while my family awkwardly said their goodbyes, my mother hugging me a little too tight, whispering, "Are you okay?" in my ear. I'm fine, I told her. I'm perfectly clarity. That night, Lauren and Emma watched a movie in the living room. I went into my home office and closed the door. I didn't sulk. I worked. I pulled up our bank statements. I pulled up the spreadsheets I used to manage the household finances. I categorized every single expense from the last 4 years. Column A, joint expenses, mortgage, groceries, utilities. Column B, Emma's specific expenses, tuition, dance, soccer, electronics, clothes, phone plan, insurance. The total in column B was staggering. It was the GDP of a small nation, and every cent of it had come from my salary. Lauren's income barely covered her own car payment and the groceries. I remembered my place. My place, apparently, was husband, not father. And in the eyes of the law, and according to Lauren's own logic, a stepfather has no legal obligation to support a child that isn't his. The next morning was Black Friday. Appropriate. I started making calls at 9 a.m. First, the cell phone provider. I was the account holder. I transferred my number to a new, single-line plan. I authorized the cancellation of the other 2 lines effective at the end of the billing cycle, 3 days from now. Next, the car insurance. I removed myself from the policy that covered Lauren's SUV and, more importantly, the additional premium for a teen driver permit for Emma. Then, the soccer club. I called the treasurer. I am withdrawing my sponsorship of Emma's fees, I said. Any outstanding balance is now the responsibility of her biological parents. And finally, Jude's Academy. I spoke to the bursar. I am removing my credit card from the file, I said. I am no longer the guarantor for Emma's tuition. Please send all future invoices to her legal guardian, Lauren. Sir, the bursar said, tuition is due on the 1st of the month. If we don't receive payment, she cannot attend classes. I understand, I said. I suggest you call her mother. I didn't stop there. I opened a new bank account at a different bank. I redirected my direct deposit. I transferred exactly half of our joint savings, my legal share, into my new account. I left enough in the joint account to cover the mortgage and utilities for 1 month. I wasn't leaving. Not yet. I wanted to see this play out. The weekend passed quietly. I didn't help Emma with homework. I didn't ask her about her friends. When she asked for $20 to go to the movies, I looked up from my book and said, "Ask your dad." Mark isn't answering, she said, annoyed. "Ask your mom," I said. "Mom says she's broke until payday." "That's unfortunate," I said, and went back to reading. The bomb dropped on Tuesday. I was working from home. I heard the phone ring in the kitchen. I heard Lauren answer. "Hello? Yes, this is she.Who? The bursar. I don't. What do you mean declined?" I sat in the living room, turning the page of my book. "No, that card is valid. My husband pays the." "What do you mean he removed authorization?" Silence. Then panic. $1,800. By tomorrow. I don't have. Surely you can wait until expelled. You can't expel her. She slammed the phone down. She stormed into the living room. What did you do? She screamed. I looked up. I'm working, Lauren. The school just called. They said you cut off the tuition payments. They're going to kick him out. Yes, I said calmly. I imagine they will if the bill isn't paid. Why? She was trembling. Are you insane? No, I said. I'm remembering my place. You told me explicitly at Thanksgiving that Emma is not my daughter. You told me I am just a stepfather, and I need to back off. You humiliated me in front of my family to make that point clear. That was just an argument. She stammered. I didn't mean stop paying for her school. You can't have it both ways, Lauren. I stood up. You can't tell me I have no right to parent her, no right to claim pride in her achievements, and no right to be treated with respect, but then expect me to bankroll her lifestyle. If Mark is her father, Mark can pay for St. Jude's. Mark doesn't have that kind of money. She shrieked. Then maybe she should go to public school, I said. It's free. She can't go to public school. All her friends are at St. Jude's. It would destroy her. That sounds like a problem for her parents to solve, I said. You are her parent, Lauren cried, tears streaming down her face now. Not according to you, I said softly. According to you, I'm just the guy who hovers. Just then, Emma walked in the front door, home from school. She saw her mother crying. What's going on? She asked, dropping her backpack. Your stepfather is ruining your life, Lauren sobbed. He stopped paying your tuition. You're getting kicked out. Emma turned to me, her jaw dropping. You can't do that. I can, I said. It's my money. And since I'm not your dad, as you so clearly pointed out, it's not your money. But I have finals next week. Emma shouted. You're ruining everything because I said one mean thing. It wasn't one mean thing, Emma, I said. It was for years of disrespect capped off by you spitting in my face while I was feeding you. You wanted credit for the science project. You got it. You want independence from my hovering? You got it. Welcome to the real world. I hate you. She screamed. I know, I said. But the good news is, you don't have to pretend to like me anymore to get a new iPhone. I walked past them, went to the bedroom, and packed a bag. Where are you going? Lauren asked, following me, her anger turning into desperation. I'm going to a hotel, I said. I've already spoken to a divorce attorney. He'll be in touch. Mike, please, she grabbed my arm. Please, don't do this. We can fix this. I'm sorry. Emma is sorry. Emma isn't sorry, I said, shaking her off. Emma is broke. There's a difference. I walked out the door. The fallout was rapid. Mark, of course, could not pay the tuition. He didn't even try. He told Lauren that private school was elitist anyway. Emma was withdrawn from St. Jude's the following Monday. She had to transfer to the local public high school mid-semester. From what I hear, the transition was not smooth. The soccer club cut her from the travel roster when the fees weren't paid. The iPhone was shut off when the billing cycle ended. We are currently in mediation. Lauren is fighting for alimony, but since we were only married for years and she is fully employed, my lawyer is confident she'll get very little. I'm keeping my retirement. I'm keeping my savings. Last week, I ran into Mark at the grocery store. It's a small town. He looked tired. For the first time, he looked like a dad who actually had to deal with a teenager. You really screwed them over, man, he said to me in the cereal aisle. I didn't screw anyone, I said, grabbing a box of granola. I just resigned from my position. You wanted to be the dad. Congratulations. The job is all yours. I hope you can afford it. I walked away. I realized I didn't miss the noise. I didn't miss the ungratefulness. I missed the idea of a family, but I didn't miss the reality of that family. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for people is let them face the consequences of their own independence. They wanted to do it without me. Now they can.